What's the matter? Cat got your tongue?
I wish.
What? Welcome to 5 Points of Articulation. Today, I'm taking a look at the DC Multiverse Platinum Edition Dark Knight Trilogy Catwoman. Huge thanks to McFarlane Toys for making this video possible by sending me this figure to review. Starting with the packaging, and Selina comes in that movie-style DC Multiverse window box. This means having that Dark Knight Trilogy logo in the middle. Normally, these end up doubling up on DC logos and character names and things like that. Looking at the movie version, we can see this is DC Multiverse, DC Shazam, Fury of the God Shazam. So here it doesn't bother me. We get that Dark Knight Trilogy logo again up top, and again on the side where it specifies that this Catwoman is from The Dark Knight Rises. Of course, if I really wanted to be pedantic, I'd point out that they never actually called her Catwoman in the movie. That's alright, because on the back we get a nice picture of Anne Hathaway in the rain. All I'm saying is, Annie, if you're out there, this could be us. For those looking in stores, here's the UPC, and for packaging, I'm giving Catwoman 5 points. Moving on to presentation, and the top of her scalp, Selina stands at 6 3/4 inches. Strictly speaking, the only new part of this figure is the head, so I've already talked about it in my Batpod video. With that being the case, I'm going to start with a little bit of a recap. First things first, and hands down, this is the single greatest Catwoman body that McFarlane Toys has given us. Previous versions suffered from really weird proportions, as well as ugly joints. This Selina has solved all of those articulation issues, and she cuts the most striking silhouette of the litter. Not only are the joints well integrated, but there's some fantastic texturing throughout the bodysuit, and I love the matte finish for the body versus the glossy finish for the gloves and boots. There's also a nice little punch of silver in there for her razor sharp heels. One question I did have was the belt. Referring back to the box, and it's a very rich brown, whereas here it's a simple glossy black. I looked at official stills and behind the scenes pictures, and I'm not sure what it's supposed to look like. With that being the case, I'm fine with the black. After all, it goes very nicely with the rest of the color scheme. Otherwise, the only new thing to talk about is the head. Technically, it's the exact same head as the last time. The only difference is being the goggles and hair. Because the Batpod version is zipping around town, she has a windswept look. The new version has simple neutral hair cascading over her shoulders. It's been very nicely sculpted, as are her cat's ear goggles. For the Batpod version, the goggles are a separate piece. They're designed to pull down for when she's in driving or cat burglar mode. This new head gives her her signature feline look. As a costume for a realistic live-action Catwoman, I really like this. In general, I prefer the full head mask like with Michelle Pfeiffer or Hush, but the Nolan design feels like a more modern, functional update of Julie Newmar. And with the Adam West series being my introduction to Catwoman, that works for me. The only lingering question is how much does this likeness work for you? Side by side with the box art, and I think it's pretty spot on. If I were to nitpick, I think the eye mask should be a little bit lower, the top lip should be a bit fuller, and the cheek should be a bit softer. Still, compared to the rest of the Dark Knight trilogy, I think that this is one of McFarlane's better likenesses. I love the original, and thanks to the head sculpt, this one is even better. So it should come as no surprise that for presentation, I'm giving this Catwoman 5 points. Moving on to posability, and the articulation on this figure is the same as the Batpod version, but with one notable difference. Specifically, her hair. The hair on the Batpod version is windswept and sculpted away from the shoulders. As a result, she actually can look up a fair amount. A more neutral pose in the Platinum Edition was sculpted to the shoulders. As such, she can't look up whatsoever. Down, however, is no trouble. There is tilt, but the hair does get a bit in the way. That said, she has no trouble with side to side. Moving down, and Miss Kyle can't quite raise her arm 90 degrees, but she does have a rotator cuff in there to help give her a bit more range. She also has no trouble with spinning her arms. Traveling down those arms, and the bicep swivel is beautifully hidden by the top of her glove. She also has double jointed elbows with a perfect bend. And then at the end of the arms are McFarlane style wrist balls that can swivel and hinge either up or down or side to side. Moving to the middle, and Catwoman has a diaphragm joint and a dumbbell waist wonderfully integrated into the sculpt. Selina can arch back this far, which is phenomenal, and hunch forward this far, which, while not great, is better than nothing. Of course, she does get a really great amount of tilt. Just keep in mind, if you pose her like this, it looks like she has a hernia. Below the questionably painted belt, and Catwoman has the typical McFarlane hips. They can kick this high, which is good for an action figure, but not even close to how high she could kick in the movie. She can, however, do a perfect split. No twist in the hip, but that's okay, because this Catwoman has thigh cut. It's honestly one of my favorite things about this figure, and was a really awesome surprise when I reviewed it the first time. McFarlane usually only does thigh cuts when having characters on motorcycles, but personally I feel like any character with a thigh-high boot could have one. Traveling down the legs, and Catwoman has double jointed knees with an incredible bend, toe articulation, and McFarlane ankles that can swivel, hinge, and like me going back and forth trying to figure out which live action Catwoman is best, pivot. With the exception of the hair, this figure is every bit as articulated as the Batpod version, and the thigh cut really elevates this Catwoman to the next level. For posability, I'm giving this Selina 5 points. Moving on to playability, and that's where this cat burglar really steals the show. Naturally, she has a trading card and a figure stand. To McFarlane's credit, it's a completely different image than the one that came with the Batpod. Otherwise, the back is just a synopsis of The Dark Knight Rises. In addition to the open hand Selina comes preloaded with, she's also got fists for fighting off Director Krennic's goons, and trigger-style accessory holding hands.
About the whole no-guns thing, I'm not sure I feel as strongly about it as you do.
Otherwise, she comes with a jewelry box with Martha Wayne's pearls. This, of course, was a major plot point in the first part of the movie, and in general is just a really nice accessory to be able to do figure photography with. Now I can make those custom Pretty Woman figures. The coolest accessory she comes with, however, is Batman's broken mask following his climactic battle with Bane. Well, of course, playability is more than just pearl necklaces and broken helmets. It's also about how well your figure plays with others. Starting off with one of my favorite Catwoman figures, and here we have the Grey Capullo version by DC Collectibles. But moving over to McFarlane, and here we have Arkham City, the regular purple version of Nightfall, and Zoe Kravitz from The Batman. Zoe brings us to other movie figures, so here we have the Penguin. Since Christian Bale never got a Penguin of his own, this works just fine for me. That said, for the other Dark Knight trilogy villains that McFarlane's given us so far, and here we have Scarecrow with his maggoty mask, the incomparable Heath Ledger as the Joker, a quick reminder that we still don't have a comic book version of Two-Face, and the Bane Build-A-Figure. Since we're here, though, talking about Batman movies and Build-A-Figures, here's the Arnold Schwarzenegger Mr. Freeze. I swear I am going to get around to a video on this guy, and if we're bringing out Mr. Freeze, we might as well bring out Poison Ivy, and if we're bringing out Poison Ivy, we might as well bring out Harley for a live-action's Gotham City Sirens. For the most important comparison, though, and here we have Christian Bale as the Dark Knight himself. That said, for a few other live-action Batmen, and here we have Michael Keaton, Robert Pattinson, and Ben Affleck, who sadly never got a Catwoman of his very own. For the next few comparisons, I thought I'd switch out Anne's head for Arkham City. That way, if you'd like to do this custom, you can see what it would look like with your comic and video game displays. First up, and here we have Arkham Knight. Next up, and here we have the fan-favorite 3 Jokers. For something more realistic, and here's Page Punchers. Back to video games, and here's Arkham City. And then back to comics, here's the blue and gray version of Hush. He towers over her, but this Catwoman does still look really good with him. But lastly, for something a bit more down to earth, and here we have the black and gray version of Nightfall. This combo might just be my favorite. As for some villains, and here we have Mortal Kombat and clown versions of the Joker, Arkham City and classic versions of the Penguin, Arkham City and classic versions of the Riddler, Arkham Origins and Rebirth versions of Deathstroke, and since this version of Catwoman most resembles Hush, here we have Hush himself. Switching back over to her original head, and for a rel-to-scale comparison, here's Selina with Pizza Spidey and the Spectacular Spider-Man, and as always, here she is with Stealth Iron Man. Are you a cat burglar? Because I think you've stolen my heart. Hey, where'd she go? Not only is this Catwoman a much-needed addition to our Nolanverse collection, but she comes with more accessories than any other Dark Knight trilogy figure. For playability, I'm giving Catwoman 5 points. This leaves us with nothing left to discuss but the price. If you can find her in stores, this Catwoman will set you back $22.99, but let's be honest, that's not where most people are finding her. On the aftermarket, she's currently available as low as $36 and as high as $80. The median price seems to be about $40, which means that it is starting to come down, and while Catwoman herself might be all about playing hard to get, this figure should not have been this hard to get. I am super grateful to McFarlane Toys for giving me this figure, but I'll be honest, part of me feels a little guilty accepting this, knowing just how many other collectors are going without. This Catwoman is great, and I sincerely hope McFarlane Toys finds a way of getting more out into circulation. Because of availability, for price, I'm giving Catwoman 3 points, averaging out to a still very impressive 4.6 out of 5. Sound off in the comments and let me know what you think about this Catwoman and Platinum figures in general. While you're down there, let me know which Catwoman actress is your favorite. If you like this video, check out one of these. Thank you so much for watching. I'll be back again real soon, but until then, play nice and have fun.